On this topic now. On the sidelines of the SCO Summit, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has met with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a statement, the Turkish presidency has said that Erdogan told Putin that Ankara was working to find a fair and lasting end to the war in Ukraine and that talks between the parties in Istanbul were contributing to peace efforts. Erdogan and Putin also discussed bilateral ties, peace efforts between Azerbaijan and Armenia, Israel's attacks on Gaza, and developments in Syria, the statement has said. At the bilateral, President Putin praised Turkey's role in efforts to resolve this conflict in Ukraine, saying its special role in mediation and diplomacy would continue to be in demand. Let's listen in to what the Russian President Vladimir Putin has said.
Признательны турецким друзьям за весомый вклад в политико-дипломатические усилия по урегулированию украинского кризиса. На Стамбульской площадке с мая этого года прошло уже 3 раунда прямых российско-украинских переговоров, которые позволили продвинуться в решении ряда практических вопросов в гуманитарной сфере. Уверен, что особая роль Турции в этих делах будет востребована и далее.
Now we go back to our guest discussion with William Yang. He's a China analyst. Alexei Zakharov, he's a fellow at Strategic Studies Program. And our guest, retired Major General Sanjay Meston. Thank you for staying with us patiently throughout this discussion. I'd first like to go to William for this question. How do you interpret President Erdogan's diplomatic strategy at the SCO Summit amid escalating military actions of Russia-Ukraine war?
I believe Erdogan, his position represents, in fact, a significant portion of, I think, the middle powers in the world that, I mean, there are very few countries that can actually still play an important role of going between Russia and Ukraine to really have an effect on facilitating constructive talks. So it is very important for him to come up and actually voice that, I think, commitment to help to continue to promote that. Because I think as at this point in time, some of the countries that both sides can still trust and really have faith in actually being able to go between Moscow and Kiev is in fact Turkey and probably India to some extent, but maybe less so, as now we are seeing India doubling down a little bit on the relationship with Russia at a time when its relationship with the US faces more strain. So I think going forward, it will be very important to see how the US in particular try to involve Turkey or try to consult with Turkey to move forward with the peace talk effort. But at this point, we are not really seeing the US government really leaning into some of its important NATO allies' ability to go between Kiev and Moscow to be able to make significant progress when it comes to the peace process.
And with that in mind, I would like to ask Alexei Zakharov, do you think this Turkey can Turkey sustain this balancing act without compromising its core economic or security interests in SCO?
Well, so far it has been successful in finding a fine line between different conflicting parties. So Turkey has been presenting itself as a diplomatic hub for various discussions around Ukraine, not only war in itself, but also some economic initiatives to unlock and in a way untie this issue, because there was a Black Sea grain initiative where Turkey played an important role, for example. There have been a series of diplomatic talks between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul, and a series of agreements to exchange prisoner of wars. Turkey is also presenting itself as an energy hub. So Russia has been trying to reroute some of its gas supplies through Turkey. And also, importantly, thanks to its geography, Turkey can, in a way, indirectly control many Russian shipments through Black Sea and onwards that are going to global markets. It's very important for the Russian economic interests. So I think that given the recent participation of Turkey in the various multilateral platforms, not only SCO but expanded BRICS format as well, I think that it has been successful in navigating between different parties.
Thank you very much. With that in mind, I would like to ask Major General Sanjay Meston's view on this. How do you see Turkey is sustaining this balancing act?
See, firstly, Turkey is a NATO member, and it has attempted, I think, 5 rounds of talks in Istanbul were held. And to some extent, the repatriation of PWs was definitely on the cards and it was organized. And I think Qatar had also played a little important role on that. And India also plays a role. The fact is that we have been, our Prime Minister has been even to Russia, and of course he has also been to Kyiv and met President Zelensky. And you had seen the emotions which our Prime Minister had reflected in his visit to Ukraine. So I will just give you a highlight. The Korean War 50 to 53 was almost 3 years. The armistice agreement took many years or a lot of efforts to get it signed, and I think India had a very important role. It went right up to the UN General Assembly, and remember, again, it was a war between, I would say, the communist and the West. That was the party line, the West and the communist. Of course, the countries affected were directly South Korea and North Korea. So you are aware it took time, and thereafter India had to send even a custodian peacekeeping force. We had sent it, and some of the PWs we had got them to India, South Koreans and North Koreans also, and some of them have actually got amalgamated in the Indian society. So I feel India also has a role, but only thing is whether it is Turkey, whether it is India, whether it is US, or whether it is NATO countries, or I would say Europe, the whole problem is where is the compromising line between the two sides, Russia and Ukraine. Till the time they don't come down on their stance, and I mentioned the stance to you, they have defined the two stated objectives or terms of reference very, very clear. Security, guarantees, and territory. In both ways, they stood their ground very, very firmly. And therefore, President Trump is only looking further imposing sanctions and, of course, trying to pressurize India, and at the same time looking to give them more weapons. But till date, it has not resulted in any solution. Solution has to come between Russia and between Ukraine. They have to develop a compromising stance somewhere, and I think countries like India can also try to help, because the negotiation is very difficult. We have seen so many countries have attempted that. We have just discussed Turkey, but the two fighting countries, they have to take a clear-cut line because some compromise has to be there. And maybe Europe Union has now a very, very important role. See, rather than fueling fire more, they have to now think of preventing the loss of Ukrainian lives and their territory. At the end, as on date, I think Ukraine has not gained much. They have lost about 20% of their overall territory. So many soldiers have lost their lives. The country is, getting bombarded every day. Even Russia has suffered. But I think Europe Union now has to take a call. Their strategy of earlier arming Ukraine and sanctions has not worked. So some kind of a different strategy has to be resolved with the intent and the end state being how to end this war. This is now what they have to look for. And since they are also one of the parties to this conflict, including the United States, I think the ball should be more in their court, and they have to look for some other strategic alternatives of the options.
Thank you very much to all our guests. William Yang, he's a China analyst. Alexei Zakharov, he's a fellow at Strategic Studies Program. And Major General Sanjay Meston for all joining us and sharing your insights throughout this news. Thank you very much. This is all we have time for, but we will continue this special coverage on the SCO Summit. Stay